Hello viewers, it's your favorite spoiler from Grand Movies. For more updates stay tuned and don't forget to like, share and subscribe to my channel please. In Duster Season 1, Episode 1, Nina demands the case files on Ezra Saxon as soon as she enters Phoenix from Quantico, but they take longer than anticipated to arrive at her desk. Prior to Nina taking over, Agent Leland Breen worked on the Saxon investigation, but he is now retired. Nina snags Jim as her informant after she almost gets transferred on her second day of work, which helps her stay a little longer. When Awan eventually delivers what look to be Breen's case files on Saxon, Nina is shocked to learn that all of the files are suddenly missing, raising the possibility of an FBI conspiracy or cover-up. At the conclusion of Duster Season 1, Episode 1, Baltimore changes everything. Jim Ellis, played by Josh Holloway, defies his word and becomes an FBI informant for Nina Hayes. At the beginning of the Duster series premiere, Jim makes a huge impression by saving the life of a young Royce Saxon by delivering a heart from a fast food restaurant and taking a call on a payphone in the midst of the desert. For Jim, the effortlessly suave, albeit not quite as cool as his brother Joey used to be, mafia getaway driver from Phoenix, Arizona, stunts like this seem like a day's work. But when Jim meets Nina from Baltimore, who is driven to overthrow Jim's boss, Ezra Saxon, his quiet life of crime is completely upended. When Nina tries to blackmail Jim to rat on Saxon, it doesn't go down well at first. This is partly because of Sylvia Mathis, the FBI's first black female agent. On her second night in Phoenix, Jim informs Nina, who shows up in the passenger seat of his 1970 cherry red Plymouth Duster, that he would never sign her informant form. Rather, until some strong hidden proof surfaces, he arranges to leave town and drive for a deadly gang leader dubbed Mad Raoul. Nina's FBI informant form is saved and signed by Jim at the conclusion of the Duster series premiere. He takes care to clarify that his sole goal is to dispel Nina's worries that Saxon is planning to target Jim's brother Joey. With the assistance of her partner, Awan, Nina conducts some research in the FBI offices and shows Jim the footage of Joey's van explosion, demonstrating that the spark originated beneath the van. Jim becomes suspicious when Saxon claims it would have been simpler to kill Bob Temple after Jim returns with the compromising images of him. Although Jim is obviously proud of his profession and his morals, it's clear that he's willing to break the rules when it comes to his family. The fact that Jim hangs Joey's dog tags on his Duster's rearview mirror is just one example of how close he was to his brother before his passing. Nina learns from her study that Jim followed Joey 2 days after he enlisted in the military. Jim's willingness to jeopardize Saxon's trust and even his life is mostly motivated by his enduring relationship with his brother, Joey. Joey's accidental death wouldn't have been so accidental if Nina hadn't implied otherwise. Jim would never have signed that document because he would have maintained his promise. Jim's covert plan with Nina was revealed before it even began, as demonstrated in the Duster Season 1 Episode 1 finale. As Jim signed the informant form, he was seen with Nina by a local police officer, Sergeant Grooms. This would undoubtedly cause Jim some trouble in Duster Season 1, Episode 2. Earlier in the episode, Sergeant Grooms, a local Phoenix police officer who is not affiliated with Nina or the FBI, was observed stealing a blank envelope from Jim that was probably filled with cash. A bunch of female high school track athletes were practicing when Grooms was strangely parked outside a school. Jim is already in trouble if Grooms is actually employed by Saxon. Aside from being a getaway driver, Jim's odd jobs for Saxon include framing certain individuals for extortion and blackmail. Jim uses Cassidy, a waitress at a nearby diner, to drug, divert, and woo a man named Bob Temple. Bob gets so drunk that Jim and Cassidy have to take him out shortly after Cassidy puts something in his drink. To give the impression that Bob and Cassidy are having an affair, they go to his hotel room and take a number of pictures. Bob is left naked and perplexed as Jim and Cassidy leave after getting the photos. Saxon intends to keep the pictures for a rainy day even though he has no immediate need to use them against Bob. Following his initial encounter with Nina, Jim makes plans to travel south to Mexico in order to obtain employment from Mad Raoul, a notoriously dangerous and enigmatic gang leader. Before leaving, Jim goes to his father Wade's house to get his belongings and get his passport. Jim didn't want to be the one to let Saxon go after all these years, so he even signed his name in blood to work for Mad Raoul. In the end, Jim remains in Phoenix for a time as Nina's informant because of the video proof of Joey's vehicle explosion. Mad Raoul might not like this, though. The first season of The Duster delves further into Jim's world and the roles that Saxon and Nina play in it. Since Jim will now need to submit information back to Nina so that the FBI can finally construct a case that can get Saxon off the streets, he will need to balance his desire to help Saxon with his need to maintain composure. However, even though Nina has video proof of Joey's car explosion, Jim isn't clear why she suspects Saxon. Even though Jim is hesitant to act like a rat, he is prepared to do so because he is not very noticeable. In Duster Season 1, he might be the only way to learn the truth, but he'll have to be careful about bringing up Joey around Saxon. Thanks for watching. For more updates stay tuned and don't forget to like, share and subscribe to my channel, please.